Hey guys, it's Sarah and I'm back today to talk about my favorite books that I read in 2015. So I read 70 books this year, which is kind of amazing for me because that's the most books that I think I've ever read in a year's time, including school years and all of that. So that was pretty exciting. But since I only work my part-time job, I do have a lot of free time, and so I'm trying to cram all the books that I can in now. Um, Before I end up, with either another job or my life gets busy. I don't know. Because I read so many books this year, I feel like there was a lot of books that were top books of the year that had amazing, like I gave them 5 out of 5 stars, um, and were just really, really good books. So these are kind of my like top of the top. They're in no particular order, and I'm just gonna say I am missing quite a few of these books just because um, I got some books from a friend that I had returned to her, and then I got books from the library. So they're not all here, but let's get going. So the first book I want to talk about is Middlesex by Jeffrey Gennades. This was amazing. This book was um, way better than The Virgin Suicides. I don't know why everyone talks about that. I think I read The Virgin Suicides probably with too much like hype to it, with too many expectations of it being good, and it did not blow me away, but this book blew me away. Like, oh my gosh. Um and this book, if you don't know, is about a family and kind of it follows like 3 generations in this family coming from um, from Greek, from Greece to America, and going through the war and the conflict in Greece. The kind of main character in this is born with both sets of genitalia, and so they don't really know. It's kind of a question on nature versus nurture, and what makes gender, and all of that. But it's just totally fascinating, and how families, like family dynamics and history. This is when they moved to America, they moved to Detroit, and so you get a lot of Detroit history. And I am from Michigan and live in Michigan currently, and so Detroit is, part of my past, kind of, in a way. I cannot say enough good things about this book. If you haven't read it, go read it. If you are at all interested in gender, or, like I said, family dynamics, or you like kind of saga e books, this one will be for you. I mean, these are all, like I said, amazing and my favorite, so they're all good, and you should go read them all. But this is One More Thing by B.J. Novak. This is a book of short stories, and B.J. Novak, he is an actor, and he's written a couple books now, and I just feel like so many good stories in here, and I just, like, laughed, and were touched by different things, it just made you think, like, so many ideas going on in this book. I think that's why I like short stories, like a book of short stories like this, because you can fit so many different things in one book. Um, and also, I feel like I have a very short attention span sometimes, so this is a good read um, if you kind of just want to like pick up a book and read for a little bit and then set it down. You can kind of like read one story at a time, which is good when I'm reading a ton of other books. I just, yeah. So, anyways, go read this. The next book that I want to talk about is actually a graphic novel, and I don't have it with me because I got it from the library, but I will put a picture up somewhere, hopefully over there maybe, I don't know. Okay, so I feel like I read a ton of really, really good graphic novels this year and graphic memoirs, everything like that. I read Mouse this year, I read Persepolis this year, I read Fun Home this year. I mean, like, the list goes on. But the one graphic novel that I wanted to include on this list, more so than anything else, um, had to be The Arrival by Sean Tan, and this book was gorgeous. Um, it's kind of got like a mystical element to it, and it's about, I don't know, this guy arriving in this like land, um, and there's all these creatures, but the story just has so much to it, and all it is pictures. There's no words. There's nothing else. It's just um, drawings and whatnot, and it's like I said, it's gorgeous. Color palette, just his whole style of the book. Yeah, it's something that stayed with me. Um, I think maybe longer than all the other graphic novels that I read, uh, or in a different way, maybe. It was really inspiring. So, yeah, there's that. Next book I want to talk about is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I read this for my book club this year, and I'm kind of mad that I didn't read this sooner. I had already seen the movie before I read the book, so I knew what the story was about, but this was still amazing. If you don't know, this is a book that was written 60s. I don't know. Probably shouldn't be talking about it if I don't know the actual answer. This book follows a guy who gets put into a mental institute after being arrested. He kind of chooses to go there instead of go back to jail because he thinks it's going to be better for him. And this just says a lot about kind of mental institutions and the way they treated patients and the, I don't know, kind of trap of the mental institute and how a lot of people ended up staying in there maybe longer than they should have. And just like I said, how we sort of treated the mentally ill or people with different mentalities. And luckily, I think a lot has changed since this book was written, but there's still a lot of stigmas, and this book is still really fascinating to read. There is a famous movie adaptation of this book as well, starring Jack Nicholson, um, which is really good. It's a really good movie. So if you don't feel like reading, you can just watch the movie. It's all right. We'll forgive you. It's okay. The next book I'm going to mention is The Angel's Game, which was the second book in the Color of the Wind. That's not what it's called. That is a Pocahontas song. Um, The Name of the Wind? Yes, The Name of the Wind. This is kind of the second book in a series, and it follows characters that were briefly mentioned in the first book, but it's not like a continuing story. Um, so it is a series that you can read in sort of differing orders if you want to. Anyways, this book was again set in Barcelona, in Spain, and it had this like history element to it. It keeps you on your toes, and it has like romantic. I don't know what else to say about it, I guess. It's just really good. It was thoroughly enjoyable to read, I guess, and it was like one of those books where you just like it's written really, really well, and also just super enjoyable and keeps you on your toes and keeps you reading. And it's those are the best kind of books, right? Because it's just everything combining into like one, and it's so good. Yeah, I feel like all of these books kind of do that. But there are a lot of books out there where you're like, oh, well, I like it for this reason because it was written so well, but it was like kind of slow and not super enjoyable to read. I'll talk about that in another video maybe. We'll talk about like ratings and how you feel about books. The next book I want to talk about is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and this book was like the best of everything. You know how I just talked about like the best of both worlds and how you get all of that in there? This was like a combination of everything that is good in the world in one thing. Story follows a girl in Famalu who was born in Nigeria and she emigrates to America. I always get it wrong. Sorry, but I always get immigrates and emigrate mixed up. But anyways, she moves from Nigeria to America, and it follows kind of her growth from childhood to adulthood and the differences in the cultures of the countries. And it also follows kind of boy that she meets when she's younger and falls in love with, and his life as well. So it parallels them. And so he goes to Britain, actually. He goes to London. So it's got these different cultures that it sort of talks about, and talks about dealing with immigrants and how different countries handle that, and the struggles of being African American in different countries, and the struggles of being in America and being black and maybe not being American black, but the difference between American black and non American blacks. And it's really fascinating because it's something that maybe we all know about in different ways. But obviously, as a white person who grew up in America, I have very little knowledge, obviously, of what it means to be black in America. And I think it's something that, one of those things that, even though maybe I can like sympathize and get in a way as an outsider, you don't ever really understand unless you're inside the situation and unless you're faced with that. And so I think it brings a lot of awareness to people, and it educates people on the differences and maybe how we can handle that better. And yeah, it's just a fascinating, fascinating book. And it says so much about the world without being boring, um, or being too like sociological. You're frustrated, but you're never bored. Yeah. The next book I want to talk about is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This book was kind of big in YouTube a while ago, and I kept wanting to read it and never got around to it. And then I noticed that we were reading it from a book club and got super excited because I just couldn't wait to read this, and I finally had a reason to that I couldn't ignore and I couldn't put off. This is a post apocalypse novel of sorts, and it follows a group of people who survive this flu epidemic and what the world is like during that time, and then sort of far after that time, people that survive and how that changes the world and changes the culture. And it's really interesting. I know there's a lot of like post apocalypse stories out there, but this has a lot of human elements, and it also, like, not everything gets answered in this book, which I like. Like, it leaves a lot of open ended scenarios and questions, and so it's good in that aspect. I think sometimes people tend to like tie the knots too much on books and don't allow for the world to be the world almost. Also, this is set in like Michigan and Canada and Illinois, Ohio. So it's set around, and they come to Traverse City, which is where I live. Next book I want to mention is another that I don't have, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I fit this in right at the end of the year. I was reading up to New Year's Eve. This book was amazing. I had no problem reading this New Year's Eve because it was just like, what else would I want to do? I don't know. I just felt like this character embodied so many traits that I embody, and I think that a lot of people can identify with the main character. It is quite popular, and I think most people know what it's about. It's just really funny and witty, and there's a love story going on, and it's not like Americana brilliant love, but it is like really, really, really good and wonderful to read, and just made me so happy, which definitely makes for a good book. The last book is another one that made me super happy, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. This was another book club book that I finally got to read because of that. My brother has it currently. He's had it for a while. He needs to get around to finishing that. But yeah, I forced this on my dad. My dad loved this. And like I said, my brother's reading it now, and I've mentioned it to my mom. So when my brother's done, hopefully she'll read it, because I feel like it's just one of those enjoyable books to read. Like, it's funny, keeps you on the edge. Like, we were literally just like sitting on the edge of a chair, like flipping pages, and reading as fast as you can to figure out what happens. And I like how this one's also kind of open-ended. You know, you don't really get a super strong conclusion to the book, um, which is great. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it. That's all the books that I want to mention. Like I said, there are plenty of books that I read this year that I gave 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads and I absolutely loved. But these are kind of my top of the top. If you agree that you love any of these, please let me know. If you think that there is a book that I will absolutely love based on this list, please recommend that. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what is on your top favorites of 2015, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.